Today we're going to start off with reviewing and learning some divisibility rules that we need to know before we really dive into Chapter 1. One of the things that we use divisibility rules for is when we are dealing with fractions, whether we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing with fractions, we need to know what our divisibility rules are so that we can simplify fractions as easy as possible. A few things that you need to make sure that you have before you begin this lesson in this video is that you need to have your note sheet that I have provided. You need to have a pencil so that you can fill in the blanks on your notes. We do not want to use a calculator, and then also you want to have earbuds so that when you're playing this, you're not disrupting your friends around you. First two rules that we're going to talk about are the divisibility rules for 5 and for 10. So we know that a number is divisible by 5 if it ends with a 5 or if it ends with a 0. You've known that since you were real little and you started counting. One of the first ways you started counting was by counting by 5. So we know that, again, if it ends in a 5 or if it ends in a 0, it's divisible by 5. So looking at the example 435, we know that that is divisible by 5 because it ends in a 5. So what you should be doing right now as you're watching this is you should also be filling in your notes sheet so that you have a copy of your notes with you when you're working on your homework. A few other examples that we could say are divisible by 5, we could just simply say 25. It ends in a 5. We could say 30. We could also say 300. So the key is looking at that last digit. If that last digit is a 5 or a 0, it is divisible by 5. The next number that we're going to look at, divisibility rule, is 10. We know that a number is divisible by 10 if it ends in a 0, ends in a 0. So the number 730 is divisible by 10 because it ends in a 0. So a few other examples that also are divisible by 10, we could say 20, we could say 2,000, we could say 5,560. As long as that last digit ends in a 0, then your number is divisible by 10. The next one we're going to look at is the divisibility rule for 2. We know that a number is divisible by 2 if it is even. So numbers that are even have to end in a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8. If it ends in any of those 5 numbers, then it is divisible by 2. So the number 642 is divisible by 2 because it ends in a 2, which makes it an even number. The number 3, to check the divisibility rules for 3, we know that a number is divisible by 3 if the digit, if the sum of the digits add up to a multiple, sorry about that, a multiple of 3. Okay, so if it is a multiple of 3, I'm going to erase that and try to type that in for you instead. See if that's a little bit easier for you to read. So a number is divisible by 3 if the sum of the digits add up to a multiple of 3. What does the word sum mean? The word sum simply just means the result of adding. So result, your answer from adding. So let's test the number 423. We know that this is divisible by 3 because if you add each of the 3 digits, 4 plus 2 plus 3, you'll get an answer of 9. So if we do 4 plus 2 plus 3, you get a sum of 9. And we know that 9 is a multiple of 3. So the tricky part is when your number is really, really large. For example, what if my number is 45,213? And if I add up all of these digits, I'm going to do 4 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3. Well, when I add those up, I get 4 plus 5 is 9, plus 2 is 11, plus 1 is 12, plus 3 more equals 15. Well, if I'm not certain that 15 is a multiple of 3, I can do the sum again. I can add my digits again and say, okay, is 1 plus 5 a multiple of 3? Well, 1 plus 5 is 6, and I know that 6 is a multiple of 3. So if you end with a really large number and you're still not sure that that number is a multiple of 3, then continue that again and add up all the digits again to see if you have a multiple of 3. You can continue that on all the way down until you have a single digit number. Now, 6. A number is divisible by 6 if it is divisible by both 2 and 3. So you have to test the rules for 2, meaning the number is even, and for 3, so add up the digits to see if it's a multiple of 3, and if it fits both of those rules, then it's divisible by 6. It has to fit both rules, not just one. So let's test 222. We know the number 222 is divisible by 6 because it is even, first of all. So we know that the number is even, which means that it is a multiple of 2. So it's divisible by 2. And when we add up the digits, we get 6. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. And 6 is a multiple of 3. So we can say that this is divisible by 2 and by 3, which makes it divisible by 6. Let's test another one. Let's say 492. If we add up those digits, 4 plus 9 is 13, plus 2 is 15. So we have the number 15. Well, when we first looked at this number, was that number even? So if you look at the 2, that tells us it's even, so it fits the divisibility of 2. So remember, it has to fit the divisibility rule of 2 and 3. So 2 is a yes, and then 3, you add up each of the digits, you get 15. If you're not sure of 15, you can continue that addition on. So 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 is a multiple of 3. So 3 is also a yes, which means that this number is divisible by 6. The divisibility rule for 9 is very similar to 3. You're going to add up all of the digits and see if your answer is a multiple of 9. If it is, then it's divisible by 9. So a number is divisible by 9 if the sum, meaning you add up your digits, if the sum adds up to a multiple of 9. So let's try 36. If I take 36 and I say, well, what's 3 plus 6? I get an answer of 9. Well, 9 is divisible by 9, so yes, that is a multiple. That works for the divisibility rule of 9. Let's say that I want to take the number 936 and I add up 9 plus 3 plus 6. I'm going to get an answer of 18. Is 18 a multiple of 9? Yes, it is, but if you're not sure, You can continue it one more time and say 1 plus 8 is equal to 9, so therefore it is divisible by 9. Let's test our example over here, 9,243. If we take 9 plus 2 plus 4 plus 3, 9 plus 2 is 11, plus 4 more is 15, plus 3 more is 18. 18 is a multiple of 9, therefore it is divisible by 9. So up here on your blank, you would have written 9 plus 2 plus 4 plus 3. And more examples of multiples of 9 could be the number 36, also the number 936. Our last divisibility rule is 4. A number is divisible by 4 if it can be cut in half twice or divided by 2 twice. So if it can be divided by 2 twice. So when we look at the number 128, if I cut it in half once, I get 64. And then I can cut it in half again and I get 32. So as long as I'm not left with a decimal when I divide it by 2 times, then it is divisible by 4. So in our blanks here it says 128 is divisible by 4 because half of it is 64 and 64 is still divisible by 2. So let's check a few numbers. Let's try 46. Well, 46 cut in half, so divided by 2, gives me 23. Can I cut that in half again? What's half of 23? Well, it's not an even number, so I can't cut it in half again, so this is an error. This one is no, this does not work. Let's try 88. Half of 88 is 44. Half of 44 is 22. So since I can cut it in half one time and then a second time, then yes, this number is divisible by 4. Let's try 124. 124 cut in half is 62. Can I cut 62 in half? Yes, I can. It gives me an answer of 31. So yes, 124 is also divisible by 4. 88 is divisible by 4, but 46 is not, because I can't cut it in half 2 times and still end up with an even number, or with a whole number. So your homework for tonight is to flip your note sheet over, and you have several different numbers here. What I want you to do is I want you to go through each of these numbers and circle any number in the list that's divisible, that the divisibility rule works for. So when I look at my example here with the number 10, is 10 divisible by 2? Yes, it's even, so I would circle that. Is it divisible by 3? Well, 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 is not a multiple of 3, so that one does not work. Check it for 4. Cut it in half twice. Well, 10 cut in half is 5. I can't cut 5 in half, so it's not divisible by 4. Divisible by 5. Does it end in a 5 or a 0? Yes, so it's divisible by 5. 6. Did it work for 2 and 3? Well, it worked for 2, but it didn't work for 3, so it is not divisible by 6. It has to work for both. 9, when I add up my numbers, is the number divisible by 9 or a multiple of 9? Well, 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 cannot be divided by 9, so 9 doesn't work. And then 10, does it end in a 0? Yes. So my divisibility rules that work for 10 are 2, 5, and 10. Your job is to go through the rest of these just as we went through the first example, the number 10. As always, please let me know if you have questions or if you need a little bit of help or if you want me to help you review some of those divisibility rules. No calculators on this, just use your rules. Thank you.